Hello friends. Have you seen a person who is very dominative in home or one's own circle but is timid when outside of comfort zone? This is a very common trait where a person has love for power but at the same time has fear of failure and lack of confidence. This is Lycopodium, the subject of our today's discussion. Welcome to another video by Visual Designers. Myself, Dr. Dimple Dalal. Let's start with our discussion on Lycopodium. The main feature of Lycopodium is love for power. The love for power can be seen in Lycopodium right from his childhood. Lycopodium is very intelligent when born, and as he grows up, he tries to achieve his ambitions and he employs every possible means to reach where he wants to, which he does by using his intelligence. For example, Lycopodium child would be very nice to his teacher, very well behaved, always volunteering his services. If the teacher wants to collect books or wants to distribute something in the class, the Lyco child would try to please the teacher in every possible way. Now, when the teacher makes him the monitor of the class or gives him some authority, then he would use this power to dominate other children. Lycopodium loves power and is very intelligent on using his power. By becoming hypocrite, he is able to make use of people for his own benefits. Lycopodium likes to dominate others and tries to control actions of other people. They are hard to inferiors but are soft to superiors. Another important characteristic feature is that Lycopodium personalities are intellectually very keen, but they lack faith in their own abilities, and this lack of self-confidence leads to fear of failure. For instance, Lycopodium person may have this constant fear that his business will collapse in spite of good results in his work. Because of this fear of failure, Lycopodium suffers from anticipatory anxiety. He has a fear that he will make mistakes. His nervousness is disguised and often quite crippling. He exhibits all the signs of nervousness like dread of appearing in public, fear of undertaking anything, frightened at trifles, etc. He often finds it difficult to express himself and makes mistake with his words. But in spite of having fear of failure and anxiety, Lycopodium usually performs better than he expects. So what can work as a confidence booster for Lycopodium? There is nothing like popularity for boosting self-confidence. And to remain popular, Lycopodium becomes a people pleaser. He flatters to give a nice impression to others. Lycopodium gets upset if anybody does not like him, even a complete stranger. He develops an easygoing nature and becomes mild as he is afraid of confrontation and social rejections. Lycopodium loves to impress others by showing his power and prestige. For example, Lycopodium will go out of his way to please his friends. He usually has a number of good acquaintances rather than few close friends. Even though he is not at all close to his friends, he will do anything to keep in favor with them. Being a people pleaser, Lycopodium is generally a diplomatic person. Even if he has no respect for another, his manner is usually be soothing and polite. Automobile salesperson's picture might come in mind here. Because of his love for power, Lycopodium is a great opportunist. He is liable to put personal gain before morality. If we think deeper, to be an opportunist, one has to be emotionally detached and flexible. His opportunism is in part due to a love for freedom and in part due to his tendency to take easy way to make gains without hard work or commitment. It is very peculiar for Lycopodium to live more in his head than in his feelings. The more intellectual he becomes, the more disconnected he becomes emotionally. In his relation with others, He is either pleasant but aloof or dependent. He wants to be loved unconditionally without having to give back very much. Lycopodium is not fond of responsibility, at least not when it involves emotional commitment. Another important point in this relation is his preference for company in the next room. Lycopodium will feel lonely in a house by himself, but oppressed when sharing his life too intimately with another. He needs the support of other people, but he also needs his space. Because Lycopodium seeks to be accepted, many exhibit a characteristic kind of sentimentality, that is, a tendency to weep when warmly welcomed or appreciated and when thanked. Lycopodium considers himself very intelligent and is able to impress others who are less intellectual than himself. He learns a little about everything and then expresses himself as an expert in each field. People appreciate him, and this leads him to think that he is right about virtually everything. And from here starts building his ego, and then he will not entertain contradictions. This ego then leads to his rude, arrogant, haughty and quarrelsome behavior. There is a tendency of Lycopodium to forget proper names. On meeting an acquaintance, Lycopodium can suffer a paroxysm of anxiety and embarrassment trying to remember their name, even though they have met many times before. This characteristic Lycopodium form of forgetfulness becomes apparent with advancing years and failing mental power. With advancing age, Lycopodium tends to become less acquiescent and more taciturn, rude and quarrelsome. The elderly Lycopodium is often something of a little Hitler, ordering about people as if they were servants. The chronic fearfulness of many Lycopodiums may translate into suspiciousness in old age. He becomes distrustful, suspicious and a fault finder. There are ailments from mortification, anger, fright and vexation. Now, because of any of the above reason, when Lycopodium goes in a state of lack of power, he feels helpless over his condition. He becomes depressed. He tends to withdraw from company when depressed and yet prefer to have company available. He tends to sit and brood about his troubles, about his past, and has very little self-respect. He does not want to be talked to or forced to do anything and does not want to make any exertion. The typical Lycopodium features like anticipatory anxiety and fear of failure increases during depressive period. They exhibit a lot of despair and weary of life as if they were on the verge of giving up on life. They may have suicidal thoughts. Lycopodium's depression is liable to be at its worst upon waking and tends to improve as the day goes on. So this is all about Lycopodium personality. If you have found value in this video, please don't forget to like and share it with others. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so now. Please provide your valuable feedback. Thanks for watching. Bye.